One thing you should probably know about me when you're trying to make a decision as to whether or not you want to know what I have to say when it comes to movies, you should probably know I'm a pretty big comic book fan. Now, I won't go so far as to say that I've read comic books for a good portion of my life. I read it for a little bit, but not for a long portion. However, the stories were so engaging that that's part of what kind of made me love the movie adaptations thereof. Now, as we all know, there have been some really good ones and there have been some really bad ones. However, this summer was one of the better ones. The Amazing Spider-Man, which kind of went, in my personal opinion, a little bit unsung because it was up against the giant titan that was the Avengers, having broken so many records. But when talking about reboots, I sometimes have a problem with people rebooting series because, well, A, you've got all this emotional baggage that you're holding on to from the previous set of movies, and a lot of times that can color a reboot, and you don't necessarily give it the credit it's due for being a movie in and of itself and for creating these characters in a meaningful and engaging way. The Amazing Spider-Man definitely holds up as one of those movies that breaks out of the preconceived notion of the previous trilogy. Don't get me wrong, Sam Raimi did a really good job on the first two. However, going back to its roots and giving Peter Parker, played by Andrew Garfield in this incarnation, more of a... He's more awkward and less whiny, for lack of a better word. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man reminded me more of Luke Skywalker, whereas Andrew Garfield's reminded me more of what I thought that Peter Parker was when I read the comic books back in the day. I mean, he's not, Mr. Gymnast looking guy like Tobey Maguire was. He's a lot more wiry and a lot more scrappy, which I liked as far as the character visually. And secondly, the awkwardness that he came up with, the perfect example is the conversation between Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, where Peter is asking out Gwen Stacy for the first time, which neither one of them actually finishes a sentence. And just the body language and the way that they spoke and the way that they portrayed the lines felt very, very true to the characters. I know parts of the story were changed. No comic book story has ever, in my personal opinion, on screen gotten it exactly right from the comic book, but at least the intention of these characters was carried forward. Also, the director seemed to have a very good understanding of how fights needed to look for us to get what we wanted out of Spider-Man. So there were a lot of wide shots. There were a lot of full head-to-toe shots of Spider-Man fighting versus the quick cuts and shaky cam that we got from Sam Raimi. I still like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, but this version to me had a little bit more of an edge, a little bit more of a voice, a little bit more of a sense of humor with itself, and yet at the same time, it gave me the feeling of how New York embraced Spider-Man in the comics far better than Spider-Man 2's grand gesture of him being passed down almost like, him on a funeral bier. However, this time around, with Andrew Garfield, the sense of humor, the in-your-face comedy, kind of the diffusing situations or enraging situations by his insulting nature to throw people off guard or for whatever reason, it felt more organic to me this time around than it did with Tobey Maguire. And I hate to keep hearkening back to the old version, but you kind of have to when, really psychoanalyzing a piece such as Spider-Man, which has had such a rich history and so many stories. I mean, the fact that they went back to the web spinners and the fact that he was super smart, I loved that, because that was always part of what I liked about Peter Parker and Spider-Man was that he wasn't the strongest or the fastest or the most martially trained, but the thing was he had his brain to make up for it. And this version of Peter Parker, the more wise, more technologically adept, it really felt true to this, this character that I have loved for so long. And I definitely, if you haven't seen it, if you let it go unnoticed because it kind of slipped in between the Avengers and The Dark Knight Rises, do yourself a favor, give it an hour and a half, check it out. I'm sure it's coming out on DVD soon, or if not, I know it's in the $3 theaters near me. If it's by you, check it out. As far as how much of my 1150 do I feel like I wasted? I saw it the first time in 3D for $15. I saw it again tonight for $4.25. Grand total of $20. So I spent $20 on it in the theaters, and I also intend on buying the Blu-ray combo pack when it comes out. So that's probably about another, $22 right there. So I honestly feel like I didn't burn any of my money. I feel like I completely got my money's worth both times that I went, and I would recommend this as one of the biggest recommendations for, movies people didn't necessarily see this summer that they should have. So until next time, check it out.